yeah, we're here looking at Calvinism. It was Miss Havisham in her video. It had never figured in my world about Calvinism and the tulip there, because it's on some of the graves, and she was explaining that the Calvinists came in, threw out the clergymen, and that they worked for the government. I was like, right, okay. So I thought that I would go and look a little bit up about Calvinism. Not really figured much for me, but suddenly, as Miss Havisham was explaining, I thought I'd go and look it up. Also, well, we will go through some of the pictures here. As I'm doing this, I am talking to Christian, and Christian is talking loads. So once we finish these pictures, I'm going to add part of our talk, because I just started taping him as he's talking to me. Because obviously with you men, get some deep conversations here. And what it was is I just told him about Sven, and Sven and Christian are same sort of men, and they're roughly at the same sort of place. And yeah, so I was telling Christian about that, and ended up having a big chat with Christian as well. Whew. Anyway, it seems as well that to be a Protestant under Calvinism, so many rules, and the way they saw everything was different, which hopefully in this video we will show you, because I bring up some things. But there are so many, you know, because Sven was talking about 13 churches, so how can that be? But when you realise how many bits of the church there are, then maybe this is how they get all the chapels, because there's so many different fractions of it, all believing in slightly different parts of what they think God and the Bible and everything is. But we're looking at Calvinism. But now we're going to add the talk that I had with Christian. Thanks very much for listening. Leave your comments below. Say that bit again.
What I'm saying is we all have to adhere to law, yeah? Law itself. The law is what we are given, yeah? And the people at the top, they run the laws, and they break the laws. They change the laws. They manipulate the laws to suit themselves. And that's not the way that the world should be run. You know, on reflection, that they get found out, they pay themselves out of the law. But that's not how it works. You know, we all have to abide by the law. All of this. There is a universal law.
Yeah, mind you, don't need a government for that. It's usually in you, isn't it? You know. Yeah.
And these people, they call themselves the Freemasons, but I think it's the people above the Freemasons. There is probably a cliche, the hierarchy, as they're called. Yeah. They suit themselves and what they do. And when you got like new...
Sorry, I don't mean to butt in, but because, you know, like the Quakers are in here, they don't believe in Calvinism. You know, it's not in their religion. And then it says, why did John Calvin leave the Catholic Church? By 1532, Calvin finished his law studies and published his first book, a commentary on whatever that is, Clementia, by the Roman philosopher, whatever his name is, Seneca, whatever his name is, sorry. The following year, Calvin fled Paris because of contracts with individuals through lecturers and writings opposed the Roman Catholic Church. So that's why he left. Doesn't really, they never explain anything. You go to these little things and you think, oh, that'll tell me, and they never say anything.
And that's exactly my judgment on...
That's Henry VIII's time. When this guy here leaves, doesn't want to be a Catholic anymore, that's the same time as Henry VIII. He was there then. And then comes Elizabeth sometime. She might even be Elizabeth. because you can never follow the times, because in every history book it's different anyway. So it's either Henry VIII or Elizabeth I here for this.
Yeah. But my sentiment is that no one is above the law. Nor king, nor queen, nor monarch, nor emperor. No one is above the law. It's there for all. Yeah, and when you see like the likes that our police force, this New Zealand police force, Australian police force, American police force, I've asked people, and all their uniforms are turned like, oh, they are like now the dark side of the empire. You know, the Sith Lords. You know, that's what it looks like. Even the flags on the uniforms have been tainted in darkness. And
what do you make of the Calvinist part of it then? Only because Miss, what did I say her name was? Havisham.
Well, Calvinists are the military, so it's military rule.
But that goes in with one of the people that ruled us, isn't it? He was like that. Oh God, I can't remember what his name was now. He wasn't a king, was he? But he ruled us like that, like communism sort of way.
Yeah. Well, this is what's happening now, isn't it? When you're told that, oh well, if you do not have our injections, you will not work. If you do not have track and trace, you will not work. If you don't have this, you will not work, etc., etc., etc. They started off with giving.
Well, I don't believe it's any of these things. I call that totalitarianism. Totalitarianism.
Well, precisely, it is to rule by force, and this is what they've shown us. You know,
Christian, to rule by black-eyed TV programs. That's what it is.
Yeah, basically. And so many people are hypnotised and programmed, just like it says, programmed.
We're all trying to find this connection. What do you reckon of this person then? I've never heard of them. They never stick Calvinism, or John Calvin, in the middle. Shall I go and see? Let's just see when Henry VIII was. Let's just see when he ruled. He ruled for 36 years. And he was from 1491 to 1547. So let's go back and have a look at Calvinism. 1540. So he's Elizabeth I then. Oh, there's a helicopter coming. Elizabeth I. Is that why she's got that dress with all the eyes and ears on it?
Could be.
So it's not Henry VIII, but it is. I still think the War of the Roses was the big thing, and then the fallout is Henry VIII, and then comes his daughter Elizabeth I. So it's her. Let's have a look again. 1619. It may not be her. 1547 was him. Let's look up Elizabeth I then. Hang on. So confusing when you go to look the kings and queens up and everything, but this person here left the Catholic Church, it says here, by 1533. Well, Henry VIII was into 1547, and after him 1558 comes his daughter. So there you go, Elizabeth I, Henry VIII, they were the change. Which just after, well, maybe 20 years after the War of the Roses then. But I think the War of the Roses was it. That's where it seemed to split everything apart. That's where we get the Queen, who is illegitimate.
Yeah.
So that's crazy in itself, isn't it? Because the Plantagenets and the Yorks are going down one side, and then Henry VIII and all that comes off another line. And the Queen sort of marries into that one. It's a different strain.
Yep.
It's all crazy because, you know, you almost forget that even our present Queen had a German surname. Her dad did. And is it her dad or her granddad? They changed the name to Windsor for the Second World War.
Yep. So that sounds about right.
It's so hard to work anything out, isn't it?
And they like it like that.
But it just seems very ironic that he is now coming out of the Catholic Church at the same time Henry VIII changes the Catholic Church. So and calls it I can't say it. Protodist. I can't say it. What are we called? Protestant. Protestant. That's it. Couldn't say it. Well, that's all a bit strange, isn't it?
It's a bit.
Because, to be honest, there's even different fractions in that, because it depends whether you're more Calvinist way or more... There's just different ways. Some believe in this, some don't believe in that. That's what makes the difference with the Calvinism. Oh.
Well, I think it all goes back to the fallen angels. Religion itself, I think, goes back to the fallen angels.
This is probably at the time we were going to America, not the 1800s and all the lies they put in. This is when the Dutch took over America, but this is when we supposedly were there that time. So they've indoctrinated something different into America, haven't they?
Yeah.
That's what they've done at that time by all the immigrants coming in. Because do you know what? With the things they had, and they were buying so much from abroad, it's like they must have had catalogues or something to buy it from. What do you say?
Yep.
Well, there's an urn they're making over in Italy. You can't see it till you've bought it. You've got to pay millions of pounds for it, but you'll love it. You're not going to do that, are you? How do they see what they were buying? Let's go on an expedition around the world because we want to buy it. We want to buy the tobacco and the potatoes and the pictures. What is it all? But this now fits in there. This wasn't there before. That is obviously something to do with Calvinism.
Yeah.
She's not in the video, Miss Havisham. She's not overly those what are they called? Calvinists. She sees that they came in and took over, flung out all the people, and then the rich ones bought their chairs at the church, and you had to go to church. But I felt that anyway, Christian, because it's almost the same thing as in America, except there they were immigrants and slaves and whatever else you want to call them. And over here it was churches. The churches owned all the land. The people worked for the churches. They farmed the lands and all that, just the same as they did for the plantation owners. So it's almost the same. And they had to pay their taxes and do all that kind of stuff. And they weren't really free, were they? They had to go to church once a day. You've got to be doing all these things. So they almost sound like the same thing, except over here we call them churches. And over there you'd call it slaves and the rest, and the orphan children and all that. It's all the same as happened here.
Yep.
Just called it different things. Well, it makes sense. Don't you think?
Yep.
Well, it does, doesn't it? I reckon the Calvinists are something to do with it. But I didn't. They're not Romans, but they're a break-off of the Romans because they were Roman before they broke away. So it's still the same thing. It's just a break-off of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. That's how they do it, isn't it? Remember, they say the Queen doesn't own Buckingham Palace now, but the monarchy does. And who's the monarchy? The Queen. So it's still the same thing. They just changed the wording.
Yeah.
Do you agree or not agree? Agree or not agree?
Obviously, yeah. I mean, one of the things that that I've talked to a lot of people about is the fact that when I was caring for Shirley, who caught MRSA or whatever, is it MRSA, something like that. She actually caught it from the hospital, and she ended up having her leg amputated because of a motorbike accident many years before. But she caught the disease at the hospital, so the result was having her leg amputated, and she ended up in a wheelchair because she didn't have much good balance and whatnot. But I ended up being her carer, wheeling her around, everywhere for months and months on end, if not for the whole year and a half or something like that. And every Wednesday or so, I took her to the clinic to have a blood check because she was on blood thinners or something like that. And one thing, this is leading up to 2018, 2019, and I'm thinking, why is everybody in this surgery sitting in the blood section, rather than having doctor's appointments? So this is pre-COVID-19, and I'm thinking there's something really weird going on, You know, everybody having blood tests. Come on, what's going on? You know, it's bizarre, isn't it? Because I've never seen anything like that, and I've been part of that surgery for a good part of 40 odd years plus. You know, and I've never seen anything like it. So I'm thinking, what's going on here? Something's going on. You know, so where they're checking people's blood groups. You know, and this is what I'm saying, that it's not about the colour that you are. It's not about the way you look. It's, you know, because we've been so mixed up, like you said earlier, about the migration of people, like you said about the kids and whatnot, that certain people can only go back 2 or 3 generations within their family. You know, we talked about this before, but these elites, they seem to be able to go back centuries and centuries. And you think, why is that? Because they never get involved in the bullshit of wars, the famine or anything like that. And this is what I'm saying, it goes back to the fallen angels. And I think that's where all the connections are, with all the mix-up with the chronology and everything else that's been disturbed within our history. Because like you just said, Karen, that there's never really a great explanation of why this, that, or the other, you know. Like when I was at school, you learn about wars, and you don't really know why the reasons, you know, the exact reasons, you know. And when you go back to even to World War I and Franz Ferdinand, they were still dueling. Why couldn't they have sorted it out within a duel amongst themselves? Because these people were elites, right? And they wanted humanity to pay, you know. What over one man's life? You know, Franz Ferdinand, he is a royal, he's elite, so humanity's got to pay. And, you know, that's the way it went. Millions and millions and millions of people died in World War I, and it was such it was like a mud fest that didn't go anywhere. You know, and eventually it was decided that Germany, who was absolutely winning the war, lost the war, you know, and then you had the creation of World War II from it. You know, Hitler coming to power, but he was one of them as well, as you know.
But then Sven will say that that's just all the headlines to grab you.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? Lutheranism has a Tudor rose on it with a cross in the middle.
Say again.
Excuse me. Lutheran. No, what is it? Let's have a look. Let's look at
Lutheran. Yeah.
It has a Tudor rose in it.
Oh wow! So that's off the old world. The Tudor rose, I think, is off the old world.
It's got Lutheranism there, but it's Anglia one. It's the Protestant, the Huguenots, the Anabaptism, whatever that is, Catholic, Baptists, Pentecostal, Evangelical. Where are we? And you've got the Lutheranism, Congret. Oh, I'm not very good at saying all these. Congret, can't say it. There's another church. Quakers, another one. Christianity, Continental Reform, Protestantism, Methodist. Goes on. Eastern Orthodox Church, Judaism. Goes on. They're all linked. That's incredible, isn't it? But do you know what? Do you know what Protestant means? Protestant means I'm still a Catholic, but I don't believe in all the Catholic ways.
That's strange.
Yeah, that's what we read up. It didn't say
funny thing is, I'm going to tell you this.
It does not say you're not a Catholic. It just says you're a Catholic who doesn't believe in all the Catholic ways. Now, that's not how we're taught Protestants is. It's nothing to do with the Catholic Church. So do you see how they can change everything here? They're just sticking all this in. It's just another level of... It's just another level of... Wow, they're all the same thing, all of them. They just branched out and, well, we'll call it that and that, but they're
I wonder if Lutheranism...
This is why you've got so many churches.
Yeah, I wonder if Lutheranism is connected to Judaism. I think there's a deep connection somewhere down there in the past. You know.
Got the Tudor rose on it with a cross in it. We saw that, but we didn't know what that was because it just showed a picture. It's a white Tudor rose with a red cross in the middle.
Yeah, I mean...
And if they're going to get funny about religions, being a Protestant is one of the youngest religions.
Yeah, from what I understand.
And that only happened 400 years ago, really? In the 1600s then. 1500, 1600. Henry VIII or Elizabeth I did it.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if they can create what they did with COVID, right, and get so many people following, I mean, we know that the people did follow it.
You've got to be careful, Christian, if we're going to put this on a video.
You know, and adhere to it, you know. It's strange that they can manipulate so many people, but that's exactly what it is. It's the manipulation.
They've got their new God. It's called TV.
Yeah, and it's exactly what I said. The control over people's minds.
But imagine all the money that they've spent on these churches for nothing. It's just to spend the money.
Yeah. Because the money's not important to the people that run this world. The money's never been important. That's why they created the Federal Reserve. You know, something that you can just keep pumping money out willy-nilly and pay everyone off.
I told you, that's the bit that blows my mind, because everybody thinks in the late 1700s it's independence from the UK, but it wasn't. You're celebrating a corporation to the UK. That's what that's what that's about. Let's call it independence, but really, they're hitched to us. They're now ours, for sure. It's ridiculous, isn't it? It's the complete opposite of what the Americans think independence is.
Yeah, and we know now that they've never really been independent, because what's going on over there it's laughable. And I've told Americans that.
Their money goes to London. All their banking gets done in London. How can that be? Flipping out.
Because we're at the centre of the world. When you look at the Union Jack, it's what you did a long time ago with that map. It's like the ley lines that flow through Britain. It's
even that lady, Miss Havisham, noticed outside some of the churches, they're on ley lines.
Yeah, and with what Alan Henderson done, I don't know where he's gone, whether he's got another profile under another name. I think that's probably what it is. But he comes up with it. There's also a couple other people that I've followed. They've got the old names that were for Britain, and that this is what boggles my mind. Why they changed them all, you know?
But I just said they did it with the Queen, because the Queen owned Buckingham Palace. Now the monarchy owns the Buckingham Palace. She is the monarchy, so they've just legally changed it to fit them.
Yeah.
This is how they've done it with the rest of the stuff. But like, obviously, Sven thinks we have only been around since Victoria, because there's only one of her. He thinks that's where we started. But I think it's something to do with the War of the Roses and on, with Henry VIII, Elizabeth I. This is what's happened to the church. They were Calvinised.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was very good. They believe a bit differently. I think they believe that you're in sin. Whereas some of the other churches, they don't believe it quite like that.
Yeah. And the very fact they called it the Victorians.
Here it is. Total depravity. Humanity possesses free will, but is in bondage to sin until it is transformed. Now, the other churches believe differently, but that's Calvinism.
Yeah.
I don't think we were put here to be in sin. Even if we have, past lives before us attached somehow, we can't connect to them. We're here. We're not here to be punished. But it is a kind of punishment, because we've noticed how horrible it is here and what we're living in. It's the worst thing that could possibly have happened.
Yeah.
It's like the worst thing you'd ever want anybody to live under is what we're in.
Well, this is what I'll be honest with you, I've only read one chapter of the Bible I've got, and I've only been there once, and that was because I got these messages of 777. And when I go back and reflect on certain things, there is certain truth within the Bible, even though it's been rewritten, and being encoded in places. I mean, I've been pointed in that direction by getting caught for smoking at school when I was like 12 years old. And my art teacher gave me a 14-page essay. And this is really weird, because 14 comes up in my life just recently, last few years, so often. And he made me do 14 pages of an essay on Leonardo da Vinci, and now that I see everything is connected the way it is, that all the inventions that he had and everything
if
else.
he's the head of the, like, John Calvin, a Protestant reformer, being a Protestant sounds horrible then. It sounds worse than being a Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, like I said,
for me, now I know what it is.
Which is really weird, because I was, like I've told you before, I was baptised twice, and I'm thinking, well, that's weird. And even though I thought I've never really been one for religion or politics, but it's like we're being pushed in that area to try and find the truth of why the world is in such a mess. And we know it's in a mess. And you think, when we came across Tartaria, I mean, I don't know how long ago now that I came across Tartaria with Mann and Philip de Roosnam, 7 years, 8 years, I don't know, somewhere around about there, that there is so much missing within history, and the red brick is definitely something that's been deliberately wiped off the face of the earth, you know, because we know that the red brick is connected to Tartaria, and yet we're told that the Egyptians were phenomenal brick builders. Well, are the Egyptians Tartaria, you know, at a later time or an early time?
I have thought of one thing. Everybody forgets that Russia owned, oh gosh, what's the country next to Canada? I always forget it. Alaska. And you could say that they just went across that little Bering Sea and then went to it, but we know that's not true because we're not. Anyway, they owned that place, and if they owned there, they were in other parts as well. So maybe Tartaria came from the Russians and went across. It must have done.
Yeah.
Because it's Middle Eastern as well, and you know because they go down to such points in the world, because Russia's so big. Russia has. They said in a video, well, Russia's nearly the size of America. We know America has 4 time zones. Russia has 11. I'd say Russia was a lot bigger than America.
Yeah. Well, unless we manage to go up to the sky ourselves and see for ourselves to that certain height and what it actually looks like, we can't tell. But I know that Africa is definitely bigger than what they show on the map. And the very fact that the points are where what you just said about Alaska and Russia meeting, and then you've got the other section where Antarctica meets Patagonia, you know, where the last place where the giants were found, whatever. But it's like the remnant of the old map when you piece it together, the outside bit. And then when you done your map, you did exactly the same thing. You were trying to make the connections of the old map to put it back together. And that resonated with me because there's got to be something to it. So what we're looking at in the map they're giving us today is of a destroyed world that's been drifting apart, or the continents have been drifting apart, and they call it the tectonic plates and whatever. They give their reasoning, but yeah, when you look at the older maps, it makes sense that even today.
That hasn't seen that, it is on the channel, on the Sun and Moon channel, about the flags. The United Kingdom covers a star map that's very similar to the Gleason map, but the Gleason map doesn't include Australia, Pitcairn Islands, most of South America and half of Africa, whereas the star map does. And then the Union Jack goes over the top, and then when you go and look at the flags, I mean, for instance, Jamaica's got a crisscross, so they live on one of the crisscrosses of that flag.
Yeah.
And it's obvious, if the points are South America, Pitcairn Islands, Australia and South Africa, then you'll see that the cross goes across. Jamaica's on the crisscross of that flag. And it goes on like that. It doesn't matter whether they've got lines, crosses, triangles. It all fits into that goddamn Union Jack.
And the points that I've just mentioned on the map are well guarded by navies. Why? When there's a treaty, there's supposed to be a world treaty, and for anybody just to go there. But if you get close to these areas, you get told to turn around. You're not allowed to go there. Why?
No. Well, I was trying to link it in with what was happening, you know, Calvinism. That kind of struck me. I thought, Calvinism? What's that?
Military. It's got to be military. That was my first thought going back centuries.
Right, saying this is where this guy is the person that broke away from the Catholic Church, so Henry VIII must have been following him.
Yep.
But I made a video about that. There were people, Catholics, years and years before, maybe a century before, getting divorced. So I can't see why they used getting divorced to change. So he had his 7 wives to change the law. He could already, I mean, I know he was the king. It's a bit different for the king. But this is all to do with the tulip. And that's, to be honest, Calvinism's to do with the tulip. If you opened a tulip up, would it look like the Tudor rose?
Well, the one thing that I look at is that the Catholics are connected to the cathodes, right? So the Catholics are in relation with the cathodes when they were power places. I'm not talking religion, I'm talking power places. Yeah? So the Catholicism connects to the Catholics. I know, but what it is, I was just saying, if you open up a tulip, is it going to look opened up like the Tudor rose? And it's not really, like it's not really a Tudor rose we're looking at. It's a tulip, which would be then be Calvinism, and then that depicts. Well, Lutheranism is the opposite of Calvinism, but that's that thing up there in that Lutheranism, which is the opposite, is the Tudor rose. It's just not got the colours in it. I think when you're looking at,
and then we're wondering whether that's the Starfort time. Just because, wondering whether that is.
I was just going to say that when you talk about Protestantism, that we are not by religion, but we protest. Yeah, that's where it comes from. To protest, Protestant. And when you look at it in that way, we're protesting that what we're being told is not the truth. So we're not religiously inclined in that way, but we are protesters. Yeah, because we know we're not being told the truth about our history.
But the Calvinism doesn't sound very good, because to be a Protestant, you've got to be in sin first, and then work your way out of sin. So you're always going to, when you go to them, you're always going to be in sin. That seems a bit like, that just sounds like how to control you.
Yeah, and I think this is where the subconscious comes into being, right? With your subconscious, you've got to decide with your subconscious to be who you really are meant to be, and in the conscious and in the spoken world. Yeah, I made that decision a long time ago, to try and be a better man in most ways. But like I've told other people, that when I was a kid, you weren't. It's like you weren't allowed to be. Most of the jobs that I went to, everybody was either on the fiddle or taking something from the top. But that comes from the very top. And then you find some more things out, and you think, holy shit, how fucking bad is it?
Everything that you ever really need to know to work out what really happened is hidden.
Yeah.
And then it's got a word up here. It goes K-A, and the A and the E join each other, and that looks a little bit like that writing they taught me when I was a kid. It was called, I've forgotten what it was called now. But you just use the backs of letters to, ITA it was called. You use the backs of letters to make other letters, so you can put an A and an E together, because they just got backs. No, that goes Kael dot VE back to front, and then an apostrophe NIS.TIK. Well, that doesn't look very English, or that looks, I don't know what that is.
Well, this is it. I mean, this is where I think symbolism is probably been. I think symbolism, I think Latin or Greek or along them lines, Russian, Latin, Greek, they're all more or less very similar, aren't they, in the way it's done. But we've had so many languages of the past, and they even tried to change the language back in the 1950s, I think it was, with Esperanto, create another new language. But this is where we are getting flummoxed, because there's so many languages to follow, and we can spend a lifetime just learning some of them and still not get anywhere. Yeah, and it's like Cubism. I came across Cubism that doesn't get mentioned very often, but that exists as well, which is also a form of symbology. And it's deciphering. What are they giving us now? We've got back to the QR code, but you've seen the size of them of late. They're massive now. And can you find any IT expert that can actually read one with his own eyes and decipher it? Without using a phone, because it's machine code.
1 second, Christian. Sorry, I had to change the They didn't get to see all the words, if they can see it. Talking about Calvinism.
Yeah, well, basically, I think that's what we're under right now. Just a different form of it, but the rule of authority. But I mean, when we heard Bush say we're gonna rule by the rule of law and not the rule of the jungle, well, the way they've been running it out is like the rule of the jungle, isn't it?
Well, that's the rule of the corporation, isn't it? That he's talking about.
And I mean, the way I see it is, I'm not against it. It's just that it's being done by the hidden hand. That everything is being done underhandedly, like by the.
Well, yeah, because they're not. The presidents aren't elected; they're selected. You think that I'm going to vote for that person because I want this to happen, and then, what do you mean 90? They're spending all that money on NASA. They do all these things really without your permission. They've set them all up and they're taking the money. But to me, NASA's just the way they pay for everything.
Yeah.
You know, the programs, the whole thing. NASA's the one that does all that. But it's just, we didn't ask for all this. We didn't, imagine taking, I just would love it. You just need to prove that they're liars. And what people think $97 million a day to something that doesn't even exist.
Well, I mean, you think about the taxes that they've had since its creation. You're talking, nearly 80 years? You're trying to evaluate the amount of money they've had.
Yeah, but look what they've done to us. They've just raised everything.
Yeah.
We'll lock them down for 2 years, and then we'll put the prices of everything up when most of them have less jobs, or jobs are more fragile. The whole thing. We'll just put the price up of everything. Make sure the petrol goes up. Come on, we've got to do the screws, and it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's all based on fear, isn't it? Not being able to pay your bills, but we know what Klaus has said of recent times. You will own nothing and be happy. Well, that's the road they're going with it all, isn't it? Because what's happening to people is they're not managing as well. They say, well,
and Christian, even though we came in with the Calvinism, which I've just got another one, that's Wikipedia. Sorry, it's Wikipedia, but it's nothing. We're not talking about any of those things. Religion doesn't even come into it anymore, does it? It just doesn't.
No, this is what they're wiping out. It's like a hidden factor, isn't it?
But did they need to get us all hooked into the churches? That's how they were. And now they've moved it onto the television, and the rest is irrelevant now. They just moved it onto something else.
That's it. You've said it. The television more or less is the religion, isn't it? Because you've got so many people indoctrinated to it. It is the in-screen to get your mind.
You've got to wake up and realise, when people like Biden or the Queen or Prince Harry, Prince William, it goes on. Tony Blair does, Boris does, Trump does, Nancy Pelosi has. It goes on. There's a list of them that all have blue eyes. The moment you see them with black eyes, it's not them.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that gets me is the fact that why did they choose Biden, who is, obviously got dementia or got something wrong with him because he's not coherent all the time. When you begin to realise this, you think, well, have they put him in deliberately to make it look like he's a laughing stock?
I think that's it, because you imagine what they've done is they've put someone in, you're laughing at him, and they are laughing at us.
Yeah, precisely.
They are laughing at us while they do this. I mean, who would want Boris? Now people are saying he's the worst Prime Minister we've ever had. So you've got, they're all idiots. They're all like they're like a character from a soap opera, and then everybody gets into it and thinks they're real.
Well, I don't know when the last Joker film came out, 3 or 4 years ago, probably around about the time that Boris became Prime Minister. So they brought out the film The Joker and they made Boris Prime Minister because he is the joker of the pack, isn't he? The laugher boy. When you begin to realise that now.
People didn't like you've got Boris Johnson, everybody's names ended up being sexual words.
Yep. Yeah, I posted on Facebook quite a long time ago because you had Matt Hancock, Johnson, and Cressida Dick. So when you realise that you got 3 penises, but someone pointed out to me that Cressida was a lesbian, and so she couldn't be a dick. But then I put a post out saying, well, she plays the man role in her relationship. You know, that makes her the dick, doesn't it? So I know
listen,
it's true.
he broke away. It says in the 15th, this is Henry VIII. In 1534, Henry pushed the Act of Supremacy. The Act made him and all his heirs supreme head of the Church of England. This meant that the Pope no longer held religious authority in England, and Henry was free to divorce Catherine. So they're saying that the Tsar of Russia was trying to do something similar, but he became the King of England and Hitler, so I don't know about that. But Henry VIII, that's about that time that the Calvinist bloke broke away.
Yep. I think when it comes down to religion, you have to establish what's really...
Why didn't they just say the Calvinist King of England? They've put him in head of the English Church, and that's Protestant, and Protestant is the Calvinism. Oh, it's all crazy. Why not just call it Calvinist? Why call it Protestant?
Like I said, I think that religion, when you see that in the book it says about the fallen angels, well, what were the fallen angels in our history? And when you go back to history, to early Egypt, you see that they had technology. They must have had advanced technology to get everything so precise. Yeah, because even when you're looking at it from the ground from above, you know it's so precise as the stars that they are in the sky. You know, Sirius and the Orion's belt. That it's so precise. So they must have had advanced technology to be able to do that. Not just that, the hieroglyphics depict that they had advanced technology. So you think, who were the fallen angels? Well, they had to come from the sky. That's obvious, isn't it? Or come from somewhere, if it's not extra lands, whatever. But the Bible says that they taught us various things, you know, and perhaps these fallen angels were an advanced race. That's the way I see it. You know, and they're probably still here today, and they're still mining us and letting us have a certain amount of freedom.
This is Elizabeth I, right? Her religious... This is what were Queen Elizabeth's policies. Her religious policies, so we're not talking about the more financial policies, but anyway, religious policies such as the Act of Supremacy and the Act of Uniformity went a lot further to consolidate the power of the church under her and regularize the practice of the faith. So she obviously it was obviously happening, but this is sort of must be some... She has queened it, whereas Henry became it when he was king and he crowned himself it. She's come into it. And that's all to do, I think, with Calvinism. Yeah.
And to me, it sounds like the rule by force, which the rule by force is military control. And then what you were speaking about earlier about Robin Hood, that Robin Hood raided the people that raided the poor, you know, that collected the taxes.
Well, I've had this feeling that when you actually look at some of the old pictures of Henry VIII and that he was quite dark-skinned. And so was Elizabeth I, which is why she put makeup all over her to make her look white when she was dark-skinned. And then this whole dark skin thing goes right through the monarchy, you know, to the 13th, 12th century. And then that's where it all was, you know, people were illegitimate.
Yeah, I mean, it comes back to...
some illegitimate ones coming through, but they're all dark-skinned. In fact, her sister was dark-skinned. This is an article or film I saw. And she gave birth to a dark-skinned baby.
Yeah, I mean, even in the films that they made, they powder her face quite white, you know.
I think it's because she was darker skinned and she did that to make herself look white. And to be honest, one of the BBC programmes had a dark skinned Elizabeth I.
Yeah, and even when you consider that the blog that we did on another time, that we found out about the castles in Africa. So are the castles in Africa older than the castles here? It's hard to say, but it's obviously, again, migration, that they migrated from Africa to here, you know, and old documentaries that I watched, it said that a lot of life did come from Africa, but it's about...
Wow, listen to this. Who was the first queen in the world? Elizabeth I.
Wow.
Well, we know that's not quite true, because there's other people before, but in this they're saying it's Elizabeth I. Let's have a look. Who was the first king of England?
Well, when you consider...
Athelstan, 895 to 939. And he was the House of Wessex, grandson of Alfred the Great.
You're only going back into what we call the modern day history. When you go back further, you go back to the times of the Romans. That if the time set that we know by is real, you got Boadicea and Julius Caesar, that war where Boadicea was beaten by a couple of legions. You know, and you think, well, she had millions and millions of soldiers, so how did he manage to defeat them? The only way you can consider that is by advanced technology or advanced weapon, you know.
Who ruled Britain before the Romans? The Celts. There's so much history in there, because there was the, like, what is it, the Mercians? There was all these kings.
Yeah, Mercians.
And all I can see
regions.
is that when you actually go and look it up, Henry was a Roman emperor, Elizabeth I was, right up, they're all Roman emperors, especially from them. Roman emperors.
Well, even Boadicea sounds Latin, doesn't it? It sounds Italian, you know, and to me that sounds Roman. And yet when we're told that she was more or less a Celt, well, was she a Roman Celt? You know, it doesn't make any sense, does it? You know, we know that Britain was called Albion, which is also pertaining to Roman, isn't it? You know, to me it is.
So the British DNA is made up of between 10 and 40% is Anglo-Saxon. That's what it says. First settlers. That's
well,
before
I mean,
Celts, then.
There's a lot through the centuries. There was a lot of to and fro in between France and England, and I think it's probably because there was a closer connection, that the lands were more connected.
So here they're saying England is largely made up with its population: the West Germanic tribes, what do you call it? Not the Angles. Yeah, the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes.
Anglo.
That's it. Well, Angles then, the Frisians, who settled in southern Britain following the withdrawal of the Romans and partially Romanised Celtic Britain already living there. It just goes back to the Romans. Who came first, the Vikings or the Romans?
Yeah, I mean, in previous blogs that we'd done, between Egypt and Rome, it's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? You know, and it's hard to decipher which came first, but I think if it comes down to anything, I think it relates back to what you said about the authoritarian part of it, that the Romans led by force. And we've seen that depicted in many, many films. And we know that the Roman temples go back further. But do they? You know, it's that bizarre thing again about you come back to the fabrication of them putting cladding onto buildings. So were these buildings already there? You know, was Tartaria first and then the Romans? You know, it's hard to decide, isn't it? I mean, when you follow people like Jason, who does chronology, I think even he's confused about which came first. You know, but it's the errors of time that have been messed around with because of the calendar changes. You know, when you change around with the time itself, that's where the confusion starts. Why did they do that?
It says that Elizabeth I is the first Queen of England, and it says, who was the most powerful queen? Cleopatra VII. Doesn't say what year she was. It talks about Egypt. So she wasn't the first queen. Maybe the first queen in the British bit. It's so hard to work anything out, because I was using a website on here to talk about the kings and the queens, and then one night I thought, well, let's just go and have a look at another one, and it was 1,000 years difference, and I was like, oh, nothing you ever look up is the same. Everything is always different, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, some people say that when you go to sleep, the next day you wake up, the world's a different place. But no, I mean, history is still what it is, and we know these things existed, you know, and we've got like the thing that they call the Mandela effect, where certain things have been changed, You
Well,
know?
this has all happened today because I quite like what Miss Faversham was saying, and she brought up the Calvinists, and I thought, Calvinists? Who are they? I mean, that does sound like something in America, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that I remember from learning about history and the way the Scottish were involved in wars, and I'm thinking, can that be real? You know, didn't they have any weapons that they could use to protect themselves? You know, there's certain other documentaries that I've watched where armies joined other armies just for the sake of staying alive. You know, and you think it's like they were really crazy times. You know, and I'm going back like 6, 7 centuries ago.
Well, Sven will say that none of this is real, but I do think it goes back to then, because we've got the star forts. They're not just 100 years old; they are a bit older, and they're so magnificent. Like, I've got a few pictures on the computer, and I was looking at them, and a lot of them had walls, which, you know, like you just see different things every time you look, and the walls are so high to make this thing, and you think, they couldn't just slap that out. If today's thing, that would have taken years to make that.
Unless they had machine process, something
well,
like
we are realising that a stone isn't... With me and Mickey, right, in his graveyard, we saw this broken tombstone, and obviously, just with this brick thing, we looked at it and we couldn't believe it. It was full of brick. So what they'd done was they had a little thing inside, like a shape of a horseshoe, which fitted the bricks, and then they cemented them in, and then they concreted over the top, and we all thought that was stone. And the fox had been biting it to put in its layer, so that was like, oh my God, even the tombstones aren't stone. You know, there's things you think are, look at how much money they must have had. Everything's stone. They didn't. All the churches are cladded in concrete. It's not stone, it's concrete. It's all just bizarre. But the one thing we've noticed is there's a little one here in Thatcham that nearly every chapel was a little brick building which they've built on drastically and then turned it into a Norman or whatever it is by putting the cladding on. And then telling everybody, oh, that flint means it's Norman. Some of them are old, like Donington Castle is old. That is original. But a lot of the churches are decorated to look like they're much older than they really are, because I don't think Christianity's been here that long. Not the way that they've done it. No, I don't.
No.
But how do we know? Like Sven said, he had 13 churches in a mile, or 3/4 of a mile. That's a lot of churches. I mean, they couldn't have been for praying in. But we were healing ourselves. We used the salt seas. We'd go to the Indian baths. We'd have scrubs. We'd have all sorts of things. They'd be doing things to you so that you would be, you know, you could...
Water and sound.
Yeah.
Water and sound.
It's hard to work it all out because it's like a bit of history is missing. There's like 100 years or 200 missing and masses that we don't need.
Well, like one of my friends said...
my videos, hundreds of years, same boats, same guns, same wheels, same shoes, same cutlery, same plates, same beds, same transports. Everything's the same for hundreds of years. Except maybe in the 11th century you had wooden wheels, and by the 19th century you've got a frame and it's got maybe a rim on it. You know, but we're still using the same kind of things. They're just slightly moved along, and that just can't be true. We conquered the worlds. We made all these big buildings. It's not true.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with Sven that when he said about inheriting certain stuff, like that's why they called themselves the Freemasons. And whenever the Freemasons started...
But they could have been all right when they first started. They've been infiltrated, maybe by the Calvinists. Something's happened to them. They started off all right, but they didn't end up right. And now we think that rules everything.
I mean, and one of the great things is that there's film footage of the San Francisco so-called earthquake. But when you see the amount of devastation...
Do you know what? I was watching this person put these pictures together and they said, this is Hiroshima and this is San Francisco. What's the difference?
Yeah.
But we can't tell because on this other video they said, it was all destroyed and 16 years later we had all this. And that wouldn't be possible. We would not be able to build a whole great big town in 16 years. there's nothing being built. It's all built and everybody's living in it. It's just, so we don't even know if the 1906 thing happened. They just like sticking these things in.
Well, with all the film
They have
footage
to,
now,
because San Francisco is quite old still. So how does that
Yeah.
work if it all burnt down?
and the building of it and the
But we
re-erecting of
saw
it.
inside some of the buildings, and that's when I changed my mind about things, because, you know, the steeples in these things were frames. So they
Yeah,
made the
but-
frames. So we were sort of manufacturing these things. They were making them. They were making
Yeah.
the domes, making this. And this is probably where they started putting all the flint and everything and the tiles all over everything. Let's make it look 300 years older than it is.
I was trying to figure
This is
out
what happened.
why.
Sorry, I don't mean to butt in, but this is what happened. We went to see Mickey's church. For years of his life, he believed, with everything everybody said, that this is what his church was. And then the priest said, "Oh no, it's all fake. See those tombstones out the front? They're fake. They did all that when they made the other church. And what they did was they built the church on top of the old gravestones." And you're like, what? So the church desecrated the tombstones. The church goes down, so that can't be true, because you go down into these, you know, all the electrics and everything under the church, and it's big, it's not small, so that's a lie. And then you work out, because I said to Mickey, look, but in the really old bit of church, it's got the same ceiling as in the new bit. So I think, actually, some of the ceilings are the same, but they built on, and then they built on, and they built on, and they built on, and now it looks really old, and it isn't. It's all been done in the last 100-odd years.
Yeah.
And he said the gravestones out the front aren't real. Now, every time we go to a churchyard, me and Mickey see the same graves. They're all lining up against the church. You know, for years you thought they were all old, and they're not. There's no bodies in them. And that's what Miss Havisham's talking about.
Well, I was just going to say, with all the film footage I've seen of San Francisco, and you see all the buildings being downed, you know, more or less flattened, but yet you've got people walking around with umbrellas, you've got people in suits and top hats, and they're absolutely spotless. There's not a mark on them, with all the devastation around them, and you think, well, is there parts of the town that haven't been touched at all? You know, that we're still complete, and all these people have done is come in and walk through to have a look at the devastation, but yet all the roads are clear. There's no. It's bizarre. It's almost like reminiscent of what we see today at the Paradise and Santa Rosa and Huntington events.
Don't forget, you know, that day when it took me nearly half an hour just to go through one state in America that their towns had been changed. There's, what is it, how many stars on the flag? 30 odd. So there's 30 odd other states where they changed all their names. And that's because the Mexicans were running most of it, or even the Russians, and then let's do it in one lot. Okay, we'll say the British.
Someone else was in power.
We'll say we're getting away from them, and they'll get the corporation of this country.
Yeah, I mean, it's like what's happened just recently in 2019. When I said to you about there's been a power change, or I think that's what it feels like.
There's Putin, and we know he's flying double eagles.
Yeah, so perhaps that's what it could be,
but nobody likes him now. Like nobody liked Hitler either. He is flying double eagles. These people are emperors. We don't care about what it is. It doesn't mean to us what it means to them. In their world, he is an emperor.
Yeah, and the way I see things, I mean, there's so much confusion deliberately, and it's been created deliberately to ensure dead ends, you know, to ensure that we don't get the right results, you know, or find out exactly what's going on. And when you look at the centuries gone by, it's the same in every century, and you think, well, what is really going on here? You know, is it a repeat after me? And that's what it looks like, you know, deliberate dead ends.
Well, I suppose they couldn't have them with togas and all that on, because nobody would follow it today, would they? But Christian, listen, we've been going on for nearly an hour, and I've got to do something in a minute. I do appreciate your time. I mean, I rang you. We do have some good chats, don't we?
Yeah, I mean,
you never get to the end, though. That's the annoying thing. There is never an end, because there's just like thousands of pieces, and we can't put them together. Everything overruns everything else.
Yeah.
Layers of it.
To me, it's still interesting, though, because it keeps you going, you know, and it keeps the interest flowing. But it'd be nice to find out the connections. You know, that's where we're stuck. We can't connect anything up. not properly.
Had you heard of Calvinism before today?
Yeah, I think I had heard of it. Yeah, but
What did it mean to you? What did it mean to you before we talked today?
Well, to me, it meant that it's a force, like the cavalry. You didn't just have the British cavalry. You had different forms of it, like the Cossacks. You know, the Russian versions, the Prussian versions. You know, but it is part of being dominant. The dominant force in religion, isn't it? It's all backed by the same thing. It stems from the same areas, basically. But like I said, it goes back centuries and centuries to the point of the fallen. Because to me, it seems like the fallen settled in certain areas of the world, and they dominated these areas, and I think they still do. And this is what is going on now, that they've all got their own separate religions because they are part of the same clique, but they do battles within each other.
Yeah, I just think it's disgusting that they're letting this past rot away, but it's still the same, and they're pretending it's some history from the past, when actually it's still the same people doing the same things.
Yes,
and then,
indeed.
You know, like, even down to people like, I think, I can't remember who it was now. They said they used to go off in this land. It used to just be land, and then they used to go and sit there with their dad and have a nice cream. I can't remember who told me this. And then suddenly houses started popping up. And then once they start building that, it's too late. And then they've changed your whole environment, and you didn't even know it was coming.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, before we go, I'll say is what you done in previous blogs, that you did, whenever there's been large mining and the mine's empty, these people or beings have moved on to the next, and this is what's happening in the world today. It's like,
does that mean they've gone? Because, you know, like, to me, when I look at the mining side of it, everything happened and it was more or less over by the 19th century, you know, like 1910, 1920, all for the First and Second World War. It was all, most of it was over then, although they still got mines. And, you know, I think that those mines, you know, they wouldn't have cared what they were doing, how they did it, and I think they probably could have caused things with with earthquakes and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Because they take water out. They don't care what they do. So something... Have they gone? Because those things on the television have black eyes, and you can say it's CGI and all that, but how can you follow a CGI?
Yeah, it's like they've left their post and it's time to go, you know, and this is what it feels like, and this is why we come to this is why I say it's like they don't really care, because all the top PMs on Prime Minister, presidents and whatnot, we know there's been quite a few bumped off, but they say
that day when, you know, like, I don't understand how it couldn't have been there for us to see before, when you can actually find that Tony Blair is done for cottaging, and he used a different name. Now, if the whole of the nation had known that that was what had happened to him, no one would have voted him in as Prime Minister, ever.
He would never have been Prime Minister, and this is what I'm saying.
But he had, 9 years of him? Ugh.
And this is why I say they work by the hidden hand.
Well, I thought he was real. Obviously, afterwards you realise, you know, like in time afterwards, I've realised that none of them are real. But we had 9 years of that thing.
Yeah, and then he became peace envoy for Palestine, and
he's in the European Union, isn't he? He gets a great big so basically, it was treason what he did, but he's got a great big job.
Yeah, I mean, working for I don't know whether he was working for under the UN, which is more or less the same cabal.
Yeah.
But he became peace envoy for Palestine, and Palestinians said if he ever came here, we'd stone him to death. You know, so you know. And he was
you know, you can never tell whether these things are real or not. But I watched this is years ago after 9/11, and somewhere like Indonesia took George Bush and Tony Blair to court. They asked them to come. They didn't come. They had the trial. They both found them guilty. They cannot. They can, supposedly, whether this is true or not, they cannot set ground there. They'd be arrested. They're guilty.
Yep, I mean,
and then we all heard that he was going to go to court for all these things. But, you know, what they did with 9/11 was they changed the rules there. That's what one of the things it was about. So that you couldn't try the president of the day for anything. And they did a similar one for us. And that's why you can't get Tony Blair. Well, you cannot get a president or a prime minister when they're, you know, like, they're in power. You cannot get them. You cannot prosecute them.
No.
For
But it's
what
like,
they do. For what they do and the lies and the fake things they do.
yeah. But it all comes under the fact that they show us within the newspapers, the radio, the television, the movies, the songs. They do show us only in symbolism, of what they're planning and what they're going to do.
Something was happening with Tony Blair, because I was at someone's house and they just had the radio on. It was something like, I don't know, Radio 2, Radio 4. It was something like, it wasn't Radio 1, let's put it that way. Could have even been a more local one. But what they were saying was Tony Blair was going to get arrested. And they said, but what it is they just weren't sure who had the authority here. Would it be the police or would it be the House of Commons? Who had more of an authority over him? Is it the House of Commons can arrest him? Or is it the police arrest him? Now, I was like, oh, thank God for that. That he was going to get arrested for what happened. Nothing ever happened. Not that you ever heard of.
Well, this comes down to the command structure again, doesn't it? We know that Boris was a laughing stock. We know that the Tories
are... They did it like when he was opening up that umbrella. Why do that? They do it with Biden. And then, I actually quite like it, but Australian Sky, they love catching him out and what he does. And they show you. But it's all a program. It's all being made for you. So they want him like that. So why would they want to show you a man who shouldn't be ruling? And then that thing about Camilla, oh my God, we've changed the subject now, but she was, this woman was having a go at her saying about smoking, smoking the ganja stuff. And then she said, you put people in prison for that, and sometimes you give them longer sentences and everything. And she said, and you smoked it when you were younger. Then it goes over to this program where she's saying, oh, yeah, I smoked it when I was younger. And the guy said, did you inhale it? And she said, of course I did. So she should put herself in prison.
Yeah, precisely. And when I saw what you just mentioned about
how could you allow her to be in charge of that?
Yeah. Well, when I saw that bit, what you just talked about, the umbrella thing.
They just put these things out, and they think they think that we don't know. What don't the people notice when this is happening?
Because of programming, they've been programmed just to look and believe what they see. Yeah, and it's just a screen at the end of the day. But
they're watching virtual reality.
Yeah, when you talked about that umbrella incident, it's more like, even Boris Johnson was just a T-boy to these people, and that's exactly how it looked to me.
Well, he's a cartoon. He's probably not even real. I know people said they might have bumped into him or seen him. Maybe he is a real person, but when they put him on that screen, someone else is probably acting him, and he's got his voice.
Yeah.
I don't know what happens. It's more because they've got black eyes, so it's not them. What does he do? Is it everything like like how they did Lion King? Is that how they do everything? They sit there, they talk it all, and they put it over the cartoons.
Yeah, overlays.
It's all overlays with their voices and stuff. I don't know. We noticed it was going on in that Watts case. That's where me and Amy noticed this was all happening, and what we worked out from that one was that everybody was involved, from the courts to the government, the police, everything, the prisons, the solicitors, everybody in this thing, the media, they were all involved.
I think when Tim Peaky Boy, NASA was highlighting as their latest role model, and we saw the thing on the screen with Bush passing and whatnot, and you could see that it's just technology, that what they do with the CGI and the way they lift it in and lift it out. And the overlay of it, they can see one side of the screen.
General people do not live their lives like that, and so you wouldn't treat someone a certain way, and then when it is because they're constantly doing it to us, people can't believe that they would be doing it to us.
Yeah.
And would be lying, but they are.
That's why I said we're in a war. There's people call it a spiritual war, but I think it's the war for your mind, and this is exactly what's going on.
Well, again, it's the same thing, Christian. Remember they told us, for years, one of them was the Cold War, and Amy and I made a video a few years ago, and what we worked out was at the same time they were telling the world about the Cold War and all this stuff with Russia, the Russians and Americans were doing all these military sorties together, and that wouldn't happen if you were kind of at war with them. So these things, they're all just a load of rubbish. Rubbish.
Yep. And people forget that in 2019 they held the World Technical Electronic Warfare training in Wuhan. And that's never mentioned.
And the Chinese people don't know anything about it. It's not like one Chinese person says, "Oh, I remember watching that." It's just stuck in that it happened then and this was going on. And when I broke it down, it was all cartoons.
Yeah. So we know we're being fed a lot of bull. You know that you can't get away from that. You know that's why people like you and me have switched off from the television, the radio. You know, basically ignore it. You know, we use our common senses, our eyes, ears, and our know-how and our instincts rather than believing some of the bump. You know, and I think that's the best way to live. To be honest,
basically, I never thought that I would be like that. You know, I wasn't anything. You know, I used to vote. I never thought that I would feel like this. And, you know, maybe lots of people come to this channel and watch and everything. You need to do your own research. Yeah, it could take hours and hours. It took me hours and hours. It took you hours and hours and hours, Christian. But then you find things. You find it could just be somebody. Well, when my family went to America, they told us this in their letters. You know, you're just finding it through not even, you know, that lot of this pictures I'm showing today come from Wikipedia and all that. I'm not talking about getting my information from there. That's how I worked out about how the orphan children were stuck in there, and it's like they've separated 100 or 200 years, but it was probably all happening together. And, you know, they've stretched this history out when actually it's much closer together, but I don't think it was quite the way it says. But the buildings that they had in America, the hospitals, the asylums, everything, they were made. Well, when were they made? And this is where they stuck all the people who were coming over. They quarantined them.
I mean, when you look at the voting, you're actually being forced. And this is where Calvinism comes into it, or the Calvary is knocking at your door. If you don't vote, we're going to fine you £1,000, or we're going to fine you this, or we're going to put you to jail. Well, hang on a minute. They're encroaching on your free will. You've still got your mind.
You know, if you believe in democracy, which is what they've told us that we live in, they have no right to do any of this stuff, to tell us what to do, the whole thing. But then when you learn out what government means like meant in Greek is mind. Govern the mind.
Yeah.
Television. You start working it all out for yourself. You start realising that it's just all a system to do this.
Well, this is what I'm saying. To force someone to vote is undemocratic. So how does that work? You know?
Yeah, but you know what, Christian? I already did this. So they make the rules, and then when you find all that abandonment, you realise that they take no notice of the rules they make.
Correct. Yeah.
We have to, but they don't.
Yeah, because we're chattel, we're cattle, we're not part of the clique.
It's horrible, isn't it? How they do it is they need to keep us in fear, then they've won.
Yeah.
That's why every other day some other big story comes on, and then the ones they want you to get hooked on, they play over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, so that you actually believe it's happened. And that's something else that annoys me, Christian. You know, like a lot. I mean, obviously there are people older and younger than me, but anyway, I've got dates like I know where I was when I heard that Elvis died. I was in my bedroom. I was only about 7 or 8 or something, but I remember where I was. And even 9/11, when all that was happening, I know where I was, what I did the day. But they are fake. They are fake situations of now you've got memories from. It just looks like we're in those films. Remember, I believe I've had a mother and I've been brought to this place, and then it works out that it's an experiment. You know, they've given you all these memories that aren't real.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I say I believe in my common senses, the senses I was born with. But I mean, at the end of the day, when you're watching a screen, it could be anywhere in the world, it could be anyone, it could be anything, and we don't know how far their technology goes back with the splicing and the superannuation and superimposing, you know, everything else that they do with the screen. We don't know how far back it goes.
Well, do you know what? My family, my mum, when she's told me bits about my family, she goes back to her grandmother, but she doesn't go any further back than that. And that person would have been the mid-1800s then.
1800s again, yeah. Everything in the 1800s. So that says a lot, innit? I mean, I've even told other people that when you come down to architects that have been attributed to, 10,000 buildings, and you think, well, one architect can't do that many today. You know, you think, well, was this man really all over the world? And he's been attributed to this building, that.
The only other thing I've thought of is that it's a bit like we've sort of talked about it before. Everything was here, the screen set was here, that was the last lot, and they didn't survive. And then they've stuffed us in here with the orphan children. Remember, they sent children to Australia. They were still infiltrating with people. Even only 100 years ago.
Yeah, and they're doing the same thing today with Europeans coming over here.
Well, that's the same thing, because I told you, like, when you look at your bloodline, like, I am half Welsh, my mum's Welsh, my dad's family originate from Germany and France. So they came over here, everybody's like turned over. Everybody's moved on and moved on and moved on. Everybody's moving all the time. But you know what?
Yeah.
She's quite famous, Katie, whatever her name is. She's even shown that on the internet, for somebody who wants to come here, you get a house, you get education, you get medication, you get it all. Why wouldn't you want to come here? They get more than we do.
Yeah.
The people that live here don't get as much as those they are trying to bring in.
Crazy. And yet we've paid into the system for, I know I've paid into the system for decades, so, and yet...
You never thought it was going to turn out like this, though, did you?
Never.
It's like once you realise all the films they've shown us, you realise that every one of those, we're just part of all those films. It's just different aspects of it, one way or another.
What I don't get is in 2018, my nephew was told to take down the England flag from the top of his house, and because it was offensive. And I'm going, well, where he lives, everybody is English. Yeah. Even today, there's only maybe one or two people out of, I don't know, a few hundred houses that are European. And you think, well, no one else is there in this road is even foreign, you know, because the way he lives, he's lived there 20 years. So
I do think as countries go that we're probably one of the most diverse in different people living here. You know, like, you know, in certain places in America, it's the Turkish have moved in, or France, it's maybe Algiers, you know, it's another country, maybe Muslim, they do have, but we have everybody here. You know, like, imagine being an Iraqi when we were at war, supposedly, with Iraqi.
Well,
you know, like, everybody lives here. I think, considering everybody lives here, there must be skirmishes every now and again, but I think we're quite peaceful, even if they're all narcissists, they're quite peaceful.
Yeah, well, I was just about to say, if we are multicultural, right, why are they picking on the England flag? No, I'm not English, and I'm just speaking up for the English here, because at the end of the day, being English is part of being multicultural. Whether you're from India, Pakistan, Italy, Spain, doesn't matter. It's all multicultural, right? England is still part of the multicultural world. Yeah, so it is part of the country, if you like. But to live in your own country and to have your own flag be told to take it down is very weird. But yet you can buy a flag, an England flag. You can wear an England shirt. You know, all these other things. But you're not allowed to raise the England flag on your house. Well, I'm thinking, well, what's going on here? You know, when other people have their flags in their homes. You know, it's bizarre. You know, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It didn't to me at the time, because he only put it up because of the World Cup in 2018. You know, it's like he was not, and even the song, The Great Escape, it's not really got anything to do with anybody getting killed. It's to do with being an escapist, you know. It's about a great escape. And is that why it's got banned from the stadiums? Because it's about escaping the reality or the world we live in?
I don't know anymore. I think they just want us as robots. I do believe I will sit down here. I will do as I am told. Done.
Exactly. I think that's where we're heading. Not transgenderism, but transhumanism.
Well, maybe because everybody's waking up, it's harder for them to... they've got to get harder and harder about everything because we're waking up. Lots of people, I mean, you know, when you talk to the young people, like, say, my daughter's age, a lot of them don't really, they say, no, we don't really watch television.
No, a lot of them don't, because a lot of them follow the YouTube channels, don't they?
And what is it with the face thing? We go click, click, Snapchat and stuff like that. But
TikTok.
yeah, TikTok. But they don't. They say they don't really watch television. So the only people they're mind controlling are obviously maybe people with children and older people.
Mhm.
I know, but you know what? My mum can't turn it off. My in-laws can't turn it off. Can't turn it off. The television is on all the time. Not in my house. It's on sometimes for films and things, but you're not going to catch it on because I don't believe in it.
No. No, I mean, it's like I said to my friend.
And even when you watch it, you're going, oh, look at that photography. Look, they're not there together. That's what I end up doing when I watch the television.
I mean, when my friend Nora woke up to it, I know I'm going about 6 years ago, I said, but haven't you noticed that there is no news from Europe, no news from the world? It's just one issue.
Yeah, but they do it in
issue.
America, don't they? Because America's so big and like each state is like a country that Texas isn't going to be listening to what's happening in California. So even in America, nobody knows what's going on in their own country.
Yeah, and that's called the big screen, isn't it? The big screen.
Hmm.
You know.
Do you think we should? I've got to go and do some things, Christian.
Okay, we'll call it a day then.
Well, that was a good chat. I'll have to call you up again.
Lovely.
He didn't know he was going to be on this hangout, but he's just started talking, so I thought, right, I'm going to start recording it. And then I told him that I had.
Well, it's pretty natural, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Thanks very much for everything you've said. Maybe it's made people think a little bit.
No problem.
And the Calvinists are in there. Do you know what? To be a Calvinist, it says an adherent of the Protestant theological system of John Calvin and his successors. It says she was a strict Calvinist. I think that is because it's quite strict.
Yeah,
I can't believe that I belong to one of them then.
And that's where the aristocracy comes in as well, where at that particular time, you know, and the era. And I think that is still in place today. I think it's still in place today, and we call them elites or the super rich or whatever. But I think they're the same bloodlines from eons and eons ago.
Yeah, they're all Egyptians.
Yep.
Really?
And my theory is...
Or they turned it into, like, they've smudged the Roman Empire over there because they can use that, but it's Egyptian Roman, because the Romans have the eagles, and the eagles look like the Sphinx. Same thing. It's a different animal, but they're both laid out the same. They're symbols.
Yeah.
So they're part of the same thing. And for everybody, this system we're in, they all work for the same person. So you're voting for the same thing with any one of them. That's true now.
Yeah, I'd say so.
You know, it doesn't matter whether you had the left or the right, the blue or the red. You're only voting for the same thing.
Don't exist.
And, you know, do you remember, very quickly before we go, you know, the Labour Party was made to look after the poor and neglected people.
The Workers' Party.
But they're still claiming the same things today as they did then. We need better houses. We need more money. Whatever it is, it's still nothing has changed. Nothing.
It's business as usual. That's what it is. Business as usual. When Tony Blair came in, he dropped the Labour manifesto and picked up the Tory manifesto. It's like he was told to do as a good boy.
Yeah, I never seen a Labour man be such a Tory, and I really didn't like Tony Blair. And now I know one of the reasons why, because, you know, and that's if that's true, because that could have been stuck in there. But it doesn't look like he did very many good things before he was. And if you knew, you wouldn't have voted him in.
I know.
Why didn't we know that before? We do not have freedom or democracy. We are led.
How many millions of
like
people
sheep to this.
Yep. How many millions of people are fooled by him? You know, you're talking more than half the country, probably 75% of it. You know,
and they're running us with black eyes.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we finish there, Christian? We've said quite a lot.
All right, goodbye, everybody. I'm gone.
Thank you, everybody.